If you're not scared, bleep, then you're not doing it right. This was the advice given to me by a colleague of mine in graduate school. She was a couple of years ahead of me, and we were talking about this job that she landed, like a really, really big, high profile, prestigious job. And she sort of left the track of academia and walked into a completely different world. To my knowledge, she's not a reality shifter. And I looked up to her. Actually, we all did. She was kind of this symbol in our graduate program, this role model for a lot of us. And when she told me that, it struck a chord in me, and I've never forgotten it since. If you're not scared, bleep, then you're not doing it right. I would come to understand what she meant, and before I was into reality shifting or even manifestation, I was completely asleep to these things. But I was very thoughtful, as you probably were too before you were awake to these principles. I was very thoughtful about my decisions, about which jobs I applied for, how I felt about them, how I was enthusiastic. Was it forced? Was it actually authentic? And when I was sitting in front of the CEO at Starbucks of a late stage education company, negotiating my position after having been there for a couple of months, I went for it. And I went for the position that was reaching beyond for me. And I walked out of the meeting as a newly minted COO. And I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified because up until that point, I had been a director of business development and had training in operations, but almost like a secondary effect. And I had had training in directly from a CFO in financials, but like really, really entry level projections. And all of a sudden, that fear catapulted me. That fear of failure is such a powerful tool to drive us to success because it catapulted me into the unknown. And I mentioned this before, actually a couple of times, but if you're new, then it's worth repeating and highlighting. If you're not uncomfortable, you're not in the unknown. And this is really, really important as a reality shifter to be very in tune with. Because many of us, building the life of our dreams, optimizing and tweaking our manifestation process, a lot of us have really big visions, right? But how do we get there? Reality shifting is a vehicle, but we actually have to get in the vehicle and drive it. And we can't just show up to our fresh reality as the same person, because what happens is that we actually overwrite it. I've seen this personally and also working with clients. It's like you start with a fresh template. You meet somebody that has great potential of being this new character in your life. Everything kind of seems perfect. You've got this great opportunity. And then you show up in the same way that you've always been before. And what happens is that you collapse that opportunity and you shift back into your old lane. And so when you are uncomfortable, that's how you know you're in the unknown. And it's true, sometimes you can drive your car off the road. I'm not recommending that. But sometimes you can drive it into a completely different world, and it takes a little bit of practice. It takes a little bit of finesse, and it's not always as straightforward as you think it should be. I'm actually surprised by that, based on the cognitive maps that you have, based on your tolerance to novelty and change, based on your default setting and your preloaded programs and all of the unconscious and subconscious patterns. I spend a lot of time talking about shadow work because this is one of the biggest barriers to successfully reality shifting. Because when you look in the mirror and you see the same person that you were yesterday, you're in the same reality that you were yesterday. If you look in the mirror and you're surprised because your face has changed, because your eyes look different, because something is off, perhaps you don't even recognize yourself. I remember having a walk-in experience, and I won't go into it now, but it terrified me because I looked in the mirror, and this was many, many decades ago, after what I believe was an NDE, or an actual DE, AD. I looked in the mirror and I didn't recognize the person looking back at me. And it scared me because I didn't know where it was. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what was going on. And what happened afterwards was this really profound change in my sensory system. Everything went fuzzy. My body went fuzzy. I was discombobulated. I heard sound differently. Where I was at a party, I went off to the bedroom and laid in bed, and I could hear people in the other room talking. And it sounded like the sound was warped. Like I could hear it going around in a circle in this very distorted fashion. And there were other features to that experience, but I don't want to get lost in my memories. The point is that it took actually a couple days for me to recalibrate. And I realized I was in a weird place. I had a boyfriend that wasn't treating me that great. And I'll just leave it at that. And I didn't really understand my life direction. I went through a lot of changes after that, a lot of upheavals. My handwriting also changed. And whereas before I was very much focused on my present moment only and completely unconscious, I started really doing personal work, really, really looking within. I started having goals and ambitions, and I left the boyfriend and actually left this city and went off on a completely new life path. And I fundamentally became somebody completely unrecognizable. And so when you look in the mirror, if you see familiarity, then your reality shifting is not shifting. Your reality is the same. If you start to see changes, if you look back at photos and you realize, wow, I was in a completely different place then. I even look different. This is an indication that you are well into your reality shifting experience. Now, there is a process of habituation, and some people go slowly through this. So it's not like you're going to wake up one day and then suddenly completely not recognize yourself unless you have an NDE or a walk-in type of experience. And then you might have a moment like that. But this is more rare. Most people very slowly shift and change and morph over time. And looking at photographs and understanding who you were, the collection of you, the person inside your avatar, the person inside your vehicle that you're driving around in reality, you can see profound changes as you embark on the reality shifting journey, but some people's changes are much, much slower than others. And I believe this is because there is a cofactor, is what I want to say, but I'm not quite sure what that means. That's the word that came to me. There is a cofactor of a configuration that allows for the speed of your reality to contort or morph in a way that you can tolerate. And it's a ratio. It's actually a mathematical formula that is kind of hidden. This is for those that are on the quantum transhumanism journey. Not everybody is. There's a lot of people that are rejecting that, so this may not apply to you. But for the rest of you who are on that journey, there is actually a predictive formula that you can ascertain based on your threshold of comfort when experiencing novelty and disruptive events. And some people are more comfortable in chaos, more comfortable in change, in the landscape changing very, very quickly. And others are more rigid and more routine. And so depending on your unique formula, your cofactor formula, there's another name for it. It's coefficient. Sorry. I'm clarifying as I'm speaking, pseudo-channeling. And so depending on your unique formula, you can move a lot quicker. But everybody has sort of a baseline. And so what you want to understand is, what is your baseline as a reality shifter? And can you throttle it if you need to? Can you push it if you need to? And one of the telltale self-sabotage patterns is the concept of complacency, or even just being comfortable, and or having low self-worth, low self-esteem, or low value. And what that does is that minimizes what you think you can accomplish as a reality shifter. And then you run a very high risk and a high probability of staying in the same. The people will change, your cast of characters will change, but your face isn't really going to change in the mirror, if that makes sense. Meaning you're going to choose, you're going to decide, you're going to be thoughtful about those decisions, but you're not really changing worlds. And for those of you who have had a taste of the reality shifting experience, who understand that literally you can interdimensionally travel, and it's fun, it's interesting, it's exciting, it's more than just deciding to make better decisions. You actually can tweak your biology. You can morph into a different reality. I don't know to what extent this will always work for everybody, but for those of you who are already reality shifters, you know what I mean. And so for you, it's really important to understand what world you're going into, and to understand your underlying patterns that want to keep you locked into a particular existence, especially when you are reaching. And right now in the collective, we need more people that are reaching beyond, that have vision, that have sight and ambition and determination, and all of the qualities that will scare the living bleep out of you if you actually achieved it. And right now, we don't need anybody to believe in you except for yourself, because the universe has your back. And when you understand where you're going and you leave the how to the universe, and this is many, many, many people's teachings, Bashar is who I'm thinking, and also Abraham Hicks. When you let go of the how, you let go of the control, you let go of the timing, and you aim in that direction, then the universe will fall over backwards or collapse inwards, for a quantum pun, collapse inwards to help you make it happen, especially if it's aligned with the collective interest. And there are some people that are very, very gifted and very, very blessed. And there are other people that are also gifted, but are waiting for their blessings because they are clearing up karma. They are resolving shadow patterns, resolving some wound inside, or some self-sabotage. If you need help with any of those, feel free to reach out to me, but you can also do it on your own. And so it's advisable not to compare yourself to other people, especially in terms of the time frames, because you don't always know why somebody pops off or hits the gold versus others. And there can be beauty in the madness of not knowing. But the most important message that I'm called to share with several of you tonight is that your dreams, your wildest dreams, where you're really, really reaching, are waiting for you. They're actually queued up, waiting for you to connect the right elements, connect with the right people, follow the right trails, and transform yourself in the mirror. I keep seeing this person looking in the mirror, this portrait of themselves, and it's changing and morphing over time. And based on the limitations of human cognition, you're starting from position A, let's say, and you're going to go to position Z. You have to go to M first, and then P. I mean, it's not literal like that, but there's a stepwise progression because the human mind needs an element of linearity and continuity. And so if you were to just go from A to Z, your psyche would break. You would have an experience like I had, but probably worse, looking in the mirror, not seeing yourself, not understanding yourself. And it's deeply unsettling. I was not okay for some time after, but I became okay. And so we all have a threshold for that. But most people in their everyday reality, and I continue to morph and change, there's a period of time that I didn't want photographs to be taken of me because I knew that my face was changing. And I made a point on my Instagram to only take blurry photos for like 2 years when this was going on. So you'll know that you're shifting and you're changing. But being patient with the process is important because understanding that you in human form, most of my listeners still are at this particular junction in space-time, you are built a certain way. You are built to process information and the world around you in a certain way. So when it goes too fast, it's disturbing and it can shift you out of kilter and be very disorienting. So there's a certain clip that you can go, a pace that you can go. And as long as you are pushing and reaching beyond where you think you can, the universe will help you get there. So that is your message. Reach beyond.